tell. And the story I wanted to tell this time involved cute kittens turning into zombies and eating each other. So I wanted it to be in a cute style, and you couldn't really say that I have a cute style. Luckily I had a friend who is an illustrator who does have a cute style, so I teamed up with her and she did all the illustrations using Illustrator, which is another Adobe product, Adobe Illustrator. And yeah, and then I could just import them all into After Effects. I'll talk a little bit about that. Oh my god, there's a flood of questions. Let me just have a look at the chat a second. Did you know real-time sound now when you background music a bit loud? Is the background music loud? Oh, actually, I know what I should do. Sorry about this. I usually have the headphones in when I'm doing this, so that should make a little bit of a difference. Right. What do my drawings look like? Well, I used to draw quite a lot when I was younger. And I kind of stopped when I discovered Photoshop, because you don't have to draw anything when you've got photos. You can just take a photo and it's already there. But you can see from, let me show you because I did a storyboard for this. And so here you've got an example of, now I honestly, I can draw better than this. But this was only really for my own benefit, so it didn't matter how neat and tidy it was. Sorry about that, I was just dealing with something. So yeah, this particular project, I decided it needed a storyline, which meant that I'd have to plan it all ahead and do a storyboard for a change. I don't usually do storyboards for my videos because I just make them up as I go along. You can't really storyboard for that. But I had the idea that I wanted these cats to be eating each other for a reason and for stuff to happen during the whole thing. So I cobbled this storyboard together. You can see it's kind of like what happens in the video. You got some kind of, don't know what that is, toxic waste spilling into a river. You got cats bursting out of a grave and dancing and eating other cats, playing with their brains. That didn't make it into the video. Here's a cat pouncing on some trailing intestines. And the army comes along and starts blowing heads up. And they're outnumbered, so they start killing themselves and turning into zombies, and it all ends in mass suicides and dancing and stuff. There was actually going to be a nuclear explosion in the original storyboard, but I didn't bother going with that in the end. So yeah, I don't often make storyboards. I've made them for other projects. Whenever there's a story involved, and in particular in this one because there was another person involved doing the illustration, and I had to know what to ask them to illustrate. So I had to plan it all out in advance. So the next thing I had to do, once I had the storyboard figured out, is make an animatic. If you're not familiar with what that means, it's basically an animated storyboard which is animated in time to the actual video itself. And the purpose of this is to just help figure out the timing of all scenes, and how it will match up with the soundtrack. Because I had the soundtrack already, I'd made the tune sometime before this, so I had to see if I could match up the storyboard to go along with the music, and so I put this kind of really rough animation together, and you can see it's got a kind of a few illustrations in it that there were just early illustrations that I had, and yeah, it's all the stuff that happens in the video. But it all has the music as well. If I render a bit, you'll see how it all works.
Meow, meow.
So yeah, it's basically just lets me know how long each scene has to be, which is helpful because that gives me an idea of how the story is going to flow, and whether some scenes will be too long or too short or need to be chopped out. And it also gives me an idea of if I happen to need anything in particular to ask the illustrator to make anything in particular for the backgrounds. Like if there's a scene where they're in a city or a forest or something, I can ask for particular bits of scenery. Yeah, sorry that was a little bit loud. I won't do that again, don't worry. So once I have this simple animatic done, then I can start working on the actual thing itself. Now you can see from this window here all the Illustrator files. All these orange things here are Illustrator files, which are for all the various pieces that I'm going to be animating. So there's loads of them. All of this stuff. We've got carpets, ceilings, walls, and all sorts here. Even a painting that goes on the wall. So yeah, it's quite a library of stuff here. Probably enough to make a whole feature film. All kinds of graves, and each thing, if it has a particular separate part that has to move independently, it will have to be on its own layer and stuff like that. So it's not enough to just get an image of one of the characters, you have to have all their arms and legs and whatever else is going to be moving. So let's have a look in the actual project itself. Let's have a look at how I put all this together. Starting off with the moon. He's asleep, snoring away. Now you can see there's a lot of layers going on here, and a lot of them are actually 3D layers, because I arranged a lot of these in three-dimensional space, which helped me out because I just wanted to have it as a kind of a three-dimensional thing rather than two-dimensional and having to animate all the backgrounds at separate speeds and stuff like that. If it's all laid out three-dimensionally, then I can just move the camera sideways and it will move everything at the right speed. So let's have a look at all these layers. There's a lot going on here. Starting off with the sky and then a gradient. And then there's the moon and some stars. What else do we have? There's a fence and various trees. More fences and a church. All of these separate bits. I had to ask for them all to be done separately like this rather than just a full picture, because I didn't exactly know at that point how I was going to arrange it all. And a lot of this stuff I'd want to end up using again and again in different parts to save time. How many layers have we got here? Absolutely millions. Yes, too many to count. So we've got shopping trolleys, we've got a funny little maggot there who's crawling along. Got mist flowing in the foreground. This guy's puking up some toxic sludge. And because all of these are three-dimensional layers, what I've done, instead of using a camera, because usually you'd use an actual camera in After Effects, and I think what I've got here instead of that is I've just got a null layer, which is just an invisible layer, which everything is attached to, so that I can move that layer however I want it, and everything else follows it along because it's parented to it. So in theory I can rotate this and you can see it all, how it's all arranged in 3 dimensions. And I can rotate it around and stuff. There you go. But yeah, nothing ever rotates. It's all just moving flat to the side. How did I make the sludge? I was wondering that. Let me have a look. If I can actually find the actual layer. Let's have a look. I've kind of got things. Barrel spew. That looks like it might be it. Oh wow, what's going on here? That's interesting. Right, so I've got 2 layers. One is a background colour and the other is a foreground colour. And it's just rotating. And then what I do is, where is it? Ah, there it is. Yeah, and then it's just a case of masking out the particular bit that I want. I've just cut out this particular bit so that it looks like it's spewing out, but all it is just a one layer rotating. That's an interesting little trick. I didn't realise I'd done that. There's also a layer on top of it, which is the same layer duplicated, but it's using a what do you call these? They're just called modes. They're like blending options, and I've used additive in this case, which just brightens it to make it look like it's glowing. I think I probably use that a lot in this for anything that's actually glowing. If we look at that church, for example, let's see if we can find it somewhere. Moon, church sign, church building. Right. So the stained glass windows are actually a separate layer. And they've got an effect. What effect? Oh, they've got a glow effect. Well, that's another way of doing it, I suppose. Spooky effects. Also got a light here. When you've got 3D layers, you can add lights. There's an option up here for when you're adding a new layer. You can choose all these different things, and one of them is a light. And let's have a look. Right, so yeah, it's basically you can point this wherever you want it to help light the three-dimensional layers. You'll notice that the glowing church windows aren't actually affected by the light. You have various options with layers to say whether they are affected by light and shadows and stuff like that, or whether they cast shadows and etc. So for example, that lightning, that's another light that's it's just lighting the background. I think I probably had to learn a lot about 3D layers when I was making this, because it's not something I generally use a lot, seeing as everything I make is two-dimensional. Let's see if I've missed any questions in the chat. Let me have a look. Reminds me of Paper Mario. Yes, yes it does. Can I explain the wavy fog? I sure can. Let's have a look, see if I can find it. I think it's probably pretty simple. It looks like it's just a solid layer with some mask effects on it. Let's have a look. Mist. Looks like it is just a solid with some masks. So you'd have a mask to cut out the shape, and then another mask to chop out the bottom so that it's all feathered at the bottom. And I mean, I can show you quickly how that's done. Because I do use a lot of masks in my stuff, just for lighting and shadow effects. It's handy to just be able to make simple things like this. And then you can draw another mask on the same layer. And here in the mask options you can choose to add, subtract, intersect and some other stuff. I'm not sure what that does. But if I subtract, you can see it chops it out. And then I can choose to feather that mask so that it fades out more gradually. Lightning strikes. A cat's paw has emerged from the ground. This is interesting. I wonder how I did these shadows. I think they're probably just solid shapes like I was just showing. There's the lightning bolt. Dirt pile. Hand shadow. Yeah, it's just another solid layer that I've drawn in the shape of the shadow. And this is interesting. So we've got the arm here, which has been animated just coming upwards, and it's got a mask to chop the bottom of it off so it looks like it's coming out of the ground. And then there's a duplicate of that layer, but it's darkened so that we've got the highlight from the lightning. And then we've got a pile of dirt here, which I've actually animated its own composition. And each one of those is a separate lump of dirt that my poor illustrator friend had to actually create. Could you please make me a lump of mud? Thank you very much. And there's another one. The zombies are rising. So what I've done with a lot of these animated characters is I've animated them in their own compositions and then moved them into this one just to make my life easier, because these guys, they're made of a lot of layers, as you can see, and I don't really need the background behind this guy to know what he's going to do, so I can animate him separately and then I just have one layer to work with when I put him in the scenery. So each particular one of these lumps of mud is animated separately. Oh dear. After Effects error. Crash occurred while invoking effect plugin CC Composite. Crash in progress. After Effects can't continue. Sorry, After Effects has crashed. Before quitting, you have one chance to save your project. Don't use the same name as the original. Is everyone familiar with this kind of thing? So it gives you a chance to save your file, and judging from this thing, I've got 3 different ones here, so it's probably crashed before a few times. But I don't really need to save this because I haven't changed anything in it. So I'll just cancel all of that. Close the program. And let's try just opening that again. So yeah, that's the first time After Effects has crashed midstream. I'm sure it won't be the last time. Right. That was a strange particular place to crash on there. It wasn't like there was loads of stuff going on. So we've got other zombies rising from the grave here. This one spews up a load of maggots, which is nice. Let's have a look at those maggots. Because I'm always trying to find shortcuts to doing things to save myself time and trouble. And I can't believe that I decided to animate a whole bunch of maggots individually. But oh, it looks like I did. I want a closer look at one of these maggots. What are you, Mr. Maggot? What are you made of? Right, oh, it's just a solid layer. And it looks like I've just drawn a mask and then animated the mask wiggling. There we go, it's as simple as that. And I've got a stroke effect to add the outline around it. You can use a layer style for doing strokes as well, and I didn't actually know that at the time I made this, and it probably would have saved me a lot of trouble. So yeah, once you've got one maggot, you can just keep adding more and more, and then just changing where they're going, so that they all have their own little path in life. And more zombies are rising from the grave. So yeah, there's a lot of bits of zombie cat that my friend had to draw, but you can kind of see how they're all a little bit similar in shape, well, pretty much identical in shape, and that does make my life a bit easier, because it means I can animate one and then just replace all the layers with different looking ones, but because they're all the same size and shape, I can just keep duplicating it and swapping the layers. And you can see the claws are separate layers as well, and even the maggot has its own layer wiggling away there. It's got a little face. That's funny. Let me have a closer look at this worm. Look, he's got a little face and he wiggles. That's funny. So I think we should get to some dancing cats. I think that's what everyone is here for. Dancing cats, here we go. Dancing in the graveyard. So here we have another scene. These are the three zombies who are dancing, and they're all got their own composition, so they're just one layer each. But they've also got duplicate layers on top of them for the glowing eyes. And I went around I chose a really weird way to make the eyes glow, which is probably not the most straightforward way, because the three-dimensional layers here, they're kind of darkened by the lighting. So that's what they look like without the lighting, but I've added a light which puts them in shadow a bit. But I wanted their eyes to glow, and there isn't really an easy way to make their eyes not be affected by that lighting, unless you have the eyes on their own separate layer and then tell that layer not to be affected by lighting. So rather than do that, what I did was I made a duplicate layer of that dancing zombie and then just added lots of colour keys to basically cut out every single colour apart from the colour of his eyes. So if I get rid of all of these, you can see how that works. So first I chop out the dark green, and I chop out the black and the white and the red, and then all that's left is this pale green, and I just add a glow effect to that. And yeah, that seems like a bit of a bodgy way of doing it, to be honest, but it works. So there you go. So let's have a look at one of these animated marbles here. See, when I'm animating this thing dancing, believe it or not, I actually had to do this dance myself, physically, just so that I could get an idea of how it would move. So that's something for you to imagine. But it's very useful to do that when you're an animator, and you probably find a lot of animators even have a mirror on their desk just so that they can see their facial expressions for when they're animating people's faces. So yeah, I'd have to get up out of my chair and do this little dance just to give myself an idea of how the body would move and stuff. Animation it's all about timing and observation. Timing to get things moving at the right speed, and observation of just how things move in the real world, just so that you can get little details right. And that's something that I'm always learning even now. It's just something that you get from experience of seeing the world around you, basically, and then just trying things out. So when I'd asked my illustrator friend to make these cats for me, she would send me to them, and I'll show you what one of them looks like. This one in particular is labelled ZC1, Zombie Cat 1, I'm assuming that means. And I've got a whole bunch of zombies here. Right, here is Zombie Cat 1. So this is how I'd get the file. And you can, it's got all these layers here. And she was helpful enough to label all the layers. And when you're importing Illustrator files, and even Photoshop files, you can choose to import them with all the layers as an actual composition. So that's what I did in this case. And because all the different zombies, they all look slightly different, but all their pieces are in the same place. So what that means is that I can do animation for one of them and then copy all of the keyframes onto another one, and it would animate the same way. So let's have a look at how many layers this thing is made up of. We've got the arms are in two separate bits, so that I can rotate one. You can see there how it's been made without that bit of black outline there, so that it can actually bend. That's quite well done. And what else have we got? And it's the same with the legs, and they've even got marks there for the pivot points, which is very helpful, because each layer I have to move the anchor point to where I want it to pivot. So let's zoom that out, and then we've got the ears. Even the ears are separate layers. So the eyes and the mouth are on their own layers, and the reason I wanted to do that, well, I'll talk about that a bit later, because I'll probably come to that. Let me see, we're doing the dance at the moment. So yeah, let's have a look at all these keyframes. Anything that moves has a keyframe, and they're all just rotating. Each body part is parented to the bit that it's attached to. So the forearm's connected to the top, the left arm top, left forearm, right forearm. Yeah, you get the idea. You know how bodies are made. Elbows and knees and shoulders and all the rest of it. So that's a fairly simple dance. Let's find something a bit more complex. Where are we? Comp 3. Let's move on to comp number 4. Here we have walking zombies. Now these zombies, they have, each one has 3 layers. Let's have a look. Aha, so we've got a layer for the actual zombie, and then we've got another layer for their shadow, which is also a duplicate of the other layer. How have I done that? Let me have a look. Oh right, I see. So basically, to make the shadow, I've duplicated this layer and I've added a mask to fade out the top of it, and I've used a fill effect just to make it black, and then I've adjusted the opacity to fade it out, and I've added a transform effect to just flatten it and skew it. Transform, let's see, so you can see you can squash things and tilt them and stuff. And the end result is a shadow, and because it's using the same layer as the walking cat, that means the shadow actually animates just like the cat does. which is just a handy thing. I mean, you can make shadows in After Effects using 3D lights and things like that. But the problem I always have is that it makes your processor struggle a bit if you do that a lot. And I sometimes find that this is quicker and easier to do. It also means that I always have trouble with lighting, getting the shadows exactly where I want them. Whereas if I'm actually making the shadow myself, I can position it and angle it exactly how I want it to look, which might not be actually accurate to what a shadow would look like, but artistically. Walking zombie. He's coming to get you. His intestines are trailing behind him. So yeah, you can see I've probably got a whole bunch of walking zombies. Here we go. They're all numbered, the zombies. You got zombie 1 walking, zombie 2 walking, and they're all kind of the same. And all I've done is I've animated one and then just copied it and pasted all these keyframes onto another one, so that they're all identical. Either that, or I've just duplicated this particular composition and replaced all of the layers. It's pretty easy to replace a layer with another layer, and if it's the same size and shape, then it will just drop in. This particular zombie, I've had to animate his intestines dragging behind him. Guts. They're cool. And they're just 2 layers. So the way I do these is I animate them walking on the spot like this. And then when I go into the actual composition, I have to actually move them. So let's just get this zombie. So yeah, you can see this zombie, I've had to actually move the composition along. Against the background. And yeah, that can be a little bit troublesome, but sometimes I just find it helpful to have something that's just walking on the spot like that. Anyway, let's check the chat and see if there are any more questions I should be answering. Okay, let me scroll upwards and see. Looking for any questions. Questions. Someone put Cyriak's head on that dancing cat. No, thank you. How for long have you been animating? Asked somebody. I wonder, how long have I been animating? Well, I've been doing it freelance like this for about 10 years. Before that, I studied animation at college. I did a degree in animation, but I can't say I actually learned a lot about animation when I was doing that. So it's pretty much what I've taught myself over the last 10 years. Were you inspired by Happy Tree Friends? No, I'd never even heard of them. I noticed a lot of people mentioning them in the comments when I posted this video. But yeah, I had no idea who they were, and that's the answer to that. Do I like bread? What? It's alright. Bread? It's alright. Something to eat. Something to put peanut butter on. Cyriak, do you watch football? Why would ask me questions about this After Effects project? Why don't you? Shouldn't there be two shadows, one for the moon and one for the front light? Yeah, well, you see, that's the magic of cinema. You can make the world exactly how you want it to be, even if it's not physically accurate. It's all about how it looks. So, zombies are walking zombies. Where are they going? Where are you going, zombies? Let's find out. They're going to the city. Crossing the fields. Coming to get you. Let's have a little look at these layers. It's one of the fun parts of doing this project was just building these landscapes out of all these separate pieces. It's like Lego bricks, but with a real world. How long did this project take to complete? Somebody asks. I think I worked it out to about 6 weeks in total. And by the end of it, I really couldn't wait for it to finish. 6 weeks is a long time to be working on something. That's not very long in general animation terms, I have to say. Some people spend months working on animations, and my hat goes off to them. I couldn't do that. One of the reasons I use this particular simple cutout style is just because it's quicker to do. People who do actual drawn animation in Flash and stuff like that, that must take so long to do, and it takes some proper artistic talent as well. And yeah, I'm always quite envious of people who can do that. We've moved into the city now. Do projects like this one where you have to create everything from scratch take longer time to create? Yeah. In general, anything where I have to find all the assets to make it, all the source materials, actually finding the source, even if it's photos and video footage, just finding the footage and stuff like that can take quite a lot of time, even before you start actually working on it. So I mean, I say 6 weeks to make this, but that's with 2 of us actually working on it. So while I'm making the animation, the illustrator's doing the illustrating. So she'll be making stuff while I'm working on other stuff. She'll be working on things for the next scene. So yeah, if it was just one person working on this, it would have taken a lot longer. Has After Effects crashed? No, it hasn't. Right. Too many compositions open. Let's have a look. Now this is interesting. This is one of the zombies walking from the back, and it looks like I've literally copied the same animation as when it's walking forwards, but just removed its face. And I've swapped its arms and tail and stuff. But yeah, it's always the shortcuts. Whenever you can save some time doing any kind of animation, it's always good to do that. Zombies! The zombies are coming! Look out! Look, there's a little cat up in the window looking outside, wondering what's going on. Let's move on to the next scene. I should close a few of these things, I think. It's confusing my old brain, having so many things open. Let's see. Comp 6. How many comps are there? Goes up to 14. Each of these is a different scene. So this one is just the shadows walking past in the alleyway. The first victim. Let's have a look at that. That looks quite juicy. I'm bleeding, I'm dying, my face has been ripped off. And my eyeball is popping out. Oh, that's so grim, it's just dangling. Let's see what went into making this. There's all sorts here. What's this? Oh, that's not even there. Where's that cat getting its face ripped off? I want to see. Where is it? Ah, there's the arms slashing it. So where is the... Aha, here we go. Oh, well that's a shadow. Aha. Orange tabby cat attack. Whoa, whoa. Now you can see here one of the reasons why I wanted the faces to be separate layers. Somewhere in here is the face of this cat. God, how many layers has this got? Head outline. Right, this is going to get complicated, I think. Let's see if we can isolate the head. What's blood splat? Ugh. Left ear, right ear. Let's bring up the keyframes. Mouth. Ah, here we go. Wow, this is complicated. Aha. Eye colour, head outline. Right, so that's the whole head. We've got a layer for the eye shines, my god. And the pupils are also on there in there. Right, so the pupils move so that the eyes can look around. Head outline. Sorry, I'm a bit lost in all of these layers here. What I'm looking for. Oh my god. Ninja cat. What's going on? Blink. We've got a layer for the blinking. Where's the mouth? Ah, here we go. The mouth and the nose. So you can see the mouth has some position keyframes. Ah, wait a second. Right, this is the layer that all the facial bits are parented to. So this is what, when you see the face turning from the side like that to face the front, kind of looks like the head is rotating, but all that's really happening is the face bits are moving, and there's a masked, a matte layer that's it's the same shape as the head that chops out the edge of the eye. So, for example, if I grab this layer and just move it around, you can see. So, yeah, that's just a trick so that you can make it kind of look like the head is turning and looking up and down and looking around. And all these layers that all these layers that are moving, they've all got there we go. That's what the whole thing looks like. But what I've got is a a layer on top of it, which is the shape of the head. And then what you can do is use a track mat to use the alpha channel of that layer above it. An alpha channel is basically means this bit is see-through and this bit isn't. So the layer underneath takes the see-through bit from the layer up above it. So if the layer above it isn't moving, then if you move the layer underneath, you only see the bit that's underneath the visible part of the layer above it, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Mr. Cat? Does that make sense? Yes, Cyriak. Yes, it does make sense. Thank you very much for explaining to me. Half of his head disappears. That looks like it's done with some animated masks and shenanigans. And he falls down dead. So yes, and the dangling eyeball. Pop. It's just more layers that just appear at that particular point in time. So, back to our composition. The cats are dancing and they're attacking each other. Oh, it's a scene of carnage. Munching on brains. This is a good bit, I like this bit. No, don't rip me in half. Plop. A little bit of an internal organ falls out there. It must have been fun for my illustrator friend to make all these horrible bits of internal organs and stuff. Or maybe not. But they did a very good job. So let's see what else I can talk about with this project. I want to talk about that ghost. That looks weird. Well, let's see if anyone's got any questions that I've missed out on. Were you very drunk and or high when you made this? What, for 6 weeks? Bloody hell, I'd be dead. Nah, you couldn't make something as complicated as this if you're inebriated. You have to have all your mental faculties with you. Do you read the comments? Yes, I do read the comments. There were a lot of comments about, oh, those zombies, zombies don't do that, they do this, because I saw it in a film where zombies do that and not this. Which I thought was a little bit strange. Because zombies are just made up things, they can do whatever you want them to do. There are no rules with zombies. Zombies follow their own rules. Right, let's see, any more questions? Slightly curious about that door. Is that scaling up, down, or just moving around? The door? Let's have a look at that door. Which door is that? The one where they all break in? Boof, boof. Let's have a look. It's probably just a layer that's had some movement attached to it. Door, there we go. Yeah, because these are all 3D layers, I've just moved, it looks like I've just moved the door backwards a bit. See, when you've got a 3D layer, you've got three positional attributes. You've got up and down, left and right, and then towards and away. So bang, bang, that's just the door moving away a little bit. And yeah, I am using lights. This is it without the light, and this is it with the light. And you can see I've used the shadow that the light casts as well. So where were we? Where are we? What's going on? This looks like it might crash my After Effects again. Oh, no, we're still alive. The reason there are so many layers in these scenes is because I've used a lot of separate elements to build up the backgrounds rather than just have a big still image behind everything. I've got every building and the lights of that building, and it's all on its own layer. And that might seem like a bit of a pain in the bum, but it means that I can move things around and they're all moving independently like that, which just makes everything look a bit nicer, I guess. God, look at that. And all of that stuff in the background, and you don't even see it because there's stuff in the foreground on top of it. This is the pains that we go to when we make this stuff. So many things. I mean, look at that. There's a vending machine there that no one would even ever have noticed that my poor friend had to make. I feel like I want to have a closer look at it just to give it some recognition. I don't know where it is though. Right. Part of the supermarket. God, even that supermarket is made of several layers. There's the vending machine. Look, it's got a little fish in it. It's a vending machine in a city for cats, and it's got fish in it, like a fish tank. That is just genius. And no one would have ever seen it if I hadn't pointed it out. Man. Another good thing about using Illustrator files for all of this is their vector. What that means. You get vector and bitmap images. Bitmaps are just made of pixels, but vectors are made of lines. So if you scale up a bitmap, you'll just make the pixels bigger so that you'll just get massive, great big square pixels. But if you scale up a vector image, the lines just get bigger. So you don't lose any resolution, you just get fatter lines. Which means you can scale things up and down without losing the quality, which is good for stuff like this. Can't even remember what size that was and where it was. No, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to be saving this anyway. Haha, there's even a little kiddie ride in the shape of a baby chicken, I guess that is. The details, man, the details that go into this. It's crazy. Wow. I think I've talked for about an hour and a half maybe already. And I've probably covered most of the stuff in this that I would need to talk about. Unless anyone has anything specific they want to know about. I'll have a look at the chat now. If there's anything else about this project you wanted me to talk about, then speak up. What was your inspiration while doing MEOW? Inspiration? Oh, I can't remember actually. I just remembered thinking that I wanted to do something cute and horrible at the same time, and zombies and kittens just sprang to mind. I thought, how could I make a story about zombies and kittens? And this is what happened. Someone's asking me about the resolution that I make these at. Because this particular thing was made at PAL resolution, which is not very big. It's not HD. It's like 1024 by 512, I think. 576. Yeah, that's the old TV resolution back in the days before HD, because when I made this, HD wasn't really a thing. And yeah, scaling things up to HD is not as difficult as you might think. Well, but it's not as easy as you might think as well. If you're using photos, especially, you might find that just zooming in, some of the image quality might not be very good. With this, it's not such a big deal because it's using vectors, and you saw how vectors can scale up. So I could probably make an HD version of this fairly easily. But there'll probably be problems, especially using 3D layers, because if you scale up a 3D composition, it doesn't just scale up the width and the height, it scales up the depth as well, which can mess things up. So yeah, it'd be a little bit of work, I think, to make an HD version of this. So until I really have to, I probably won't. Will I ever make another animation similar to this one? Well, I actually made a music video. I've made a couple of other videos with the same illustrator that I did. Her name's Sarah Brown, and yeah, I did a music video for what was that one? It's all the robots eating each other or something. If someone knows what it is, they can put a link in the chat. It was I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was Flying Lotus. That's right. Yeah, that was fun to make. And now I did another thing for Adam Buxton, which was a counting song using illustrations, which was made. Yeah, that was in the style of a kind of a kid's cartoon that kind of goes wrong. You'll find that in the, there'll be a link to that in the playlist on my YouTube site for TV stuff, I think. Do I team up with illustrators often for projects, or is this a one at a time thing? I try not to. Sometimes the project just needs it. Like the idea, for example, this one and the Flying Lotus one, I just needed because the idea kind of demanded it, and I just happen to know an illustrator who works in a style that I wanted for them, so that was handy. Ordinarily, I try to do everything myself because I'm a control freak. But there are times when I have to have help, yeah. Someone's asked me about the meaning in these videos, which is interesting because, yeah, this particular video, there's a degree of hidden subtext going on when all the cats are committing suicide and stuff. As you can see by the end, they're actually choosing to kill themselves just so that they can join in with the fun. which you could take to mean various things, I suppose. Like, is it more fun to be one of the zombies? Or is it maybe saying that, look at all you zombies, you're just joining in without thinking about anything. Or maybe they've got the right idea, who knows? But, yeah, it's a thing, you know? It's a thing that happens. People get caught up in what everyone else is doing, and they jump off the cliff. You can see that stuff like that happening with everything that's going on in the world at the moment. Weird things are happening. People seem to be making very strange, crazy decisions. Are they just zombies following the herd? Who knows? But yeah, I like to think people consider these things when they see this and don't just go, "Ugh, zombies, ugh." Would you say making this video is more fun to do than your other projects? I tell you what, it makes a really nice change having someone there to make all of the stuff that you're going to use. That's a real bonus. I mean, just thinking, I need this, I need that. Can you just make that for me? And it magically appears. That's the good side of it, definitely. I'd like to think that it's the same kind of thing for the illustrator as well, though, to make these things and then just give them to me to bring to life. Yeah, no rotoscoping. Oh, what a joy. Yeah, I mean, even using still photographs, it's still a pain in the bum finding photos and cutting things out and stuff like that. Haha, I've just noticed an advert in the background. I want to find that. Before I go, because that just looks funny. Where are you? Where is that? It is my mission to find that particular piece of background. Where is it? It's not that. Aha, here we go. Milk bar, milky, milky, and there's a cow squirting milk. That's funny. Right, any more questions do we have? How do you make such a big scenery and only show such a small portion? Like it's meant this way. I don't know exactly what you mean by that. How do I make the big scenery and only show a small bit? Or what is it like to make such a large amount of scenery and then only show a small bit? I don't know. When you make these things, you always end up having to make more than you actually need. That's just the nature of filmmaking in general. It's like when you're filming stuff, you'll end up with like 9 hours worth of material that you have to edit down into like half an hour of footage in the end. And it's always a shame. You always want to include everything that you've made in the final thing and point to it and say, look at this bit, like I made that. Appreciate it. I spent time making that. But yeah, it's difficult. You can't really do that. But the more of these details you add to a world, the more believable that world is. Because that's what a world is. It's just thousands and millions of details that you don't even see and you don't even notice. But they're all there to make up the world. So anyway, I think I've talked for long enough. If anyone has any final comments or questions, I'd be happy to answer in the next minute or so. Nom, nom, nom. Lovely brains. Nom, nom, nom. Nom, nom, nom. What's my favourite film of all time? God, I don't really have a favourite film of all time. I have a lot of favourite films, but there isn't one in particular that I like more than all the others. Films and anything really, I find that you'll like it more depending on what frame of mind you happen to be in at the time. Same with music and everything else. You have a kind of a library of things that you like in general, and you'll like some of them more than others sometimes for whatever reason. What was one thing that you learned from this video that stuck with you until now? Oh, dearie me. One thing I learned from this video. Not entirely sure. I did have to learn a lot about vector files and how to use them in After Effects. One thing to learn about with this stuff. We take this for example. With vector graphics, it stays sharp when you're zooming it in and out, but you have to have this particular little thing here ticked, which is called continuously rasterize. You see, without it, if you scale something up, it will just go all blurred. But if you click that, it goes all sharp. And so it does that with vector graphics, but it also does that with photos as well. So for example, if you have a composition that has photos in it, let's find one. Well, let's find that storyboard. I can show you properly with that. God, where is it? What's this? Well, let's just bung this in because this is a Photoshop file. Actually, let's make that into a composition. Right, so here's a bitmap image. So it's going to look a bit pixely if I zoom in, but at this size it looks alright. But if I make a new composition and bung that one in it, like so. What point was I trying to make here? Right, I know. If I scale this down, for example. So now I've got that same image and I've scaled it down in its composition. And if I zoom in this composition, it's all kind of blurry. But if I tick the continuously rasterize, it'll take whatever resolution the original image in that composition is, and it will transfer it across to this one. And even if I put it off the edge of the composition like that, so you can see it's chopped off the edge when I have that composition in this one. But if I tick the continuously rasterize, you can see it's added that extra bit that goes off the edge. So that can be handy if you happen to have stuff going on in a composition and it happens to go out the edge of the frame, then you can use that. I don't know how much sense that actually made. It would probably make more sense if I was actually talking about a project where I did that, where I used that. So I might talk about that another time anyway. So yeah, I think that's all the questions that people seem to have. And I've talked for long enough and I need to go to the loo. So I'm going to take this opportunity to say goodbye. And thank you all for watching, and I hope you learned something. And yeah, don't know what I'll talk about next week, but I'll think of something. Cheerio, folks.